There's some dark stuff WWE doesn't want you to know. From Owen Hart's on-air death to the silence around Umaga and Benoit, these tragedies weren't just ignored, they were buried. And according to Cara Papilla, a close friend of Ashley Misaro, what was happening behind those locker room doors was even darker than fans ever knew. This is how WWE really treated their stars: disposable, replaceable, forgotten. These are the 10 things WWE hopes you never find out about their darkest deaths. And trust us, once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Owen Hart, the covered-up corporate negligence. Owen Hart was a beloved WWE superstar, known for his exceptional technical skills and coming from the legendary Hart wrestling family. A former Intercontinental Champion and tag team specialist, Owen was admired by fans and fellow wrestlers alike for his incredible in-ring ability and playful backstage pranks. His future seemed bright until tragedy struck during WWE's Over the Edge pay-per-view on May 23, 1999. During a stunt entrance where Owen was to descend from the arena rafters as his Blue Blazer character, the equipment failed, sending him plummeting 78 feet to his death in the ring. What WWE has worked diligently to hide in the decades since is the extensive negligence that led to this preventable tragedy. The wrongful death lawsuit filed by Owen's widow Martha revealed shocking details. The harness system used was a quick-release mechanism intended for sailboats, not human stunts, and the rigger hired had limited experience with such performances. No backup safety measures were in place, no secondary line, no safety net, nothing to prevent catastrophe if the primary system failed. The company's handling of the immediate aftermath was equally troubling. Jim Ross was forced to announce Owen's death with almost no preparation.
So he told me, he said, well, he's dead. And you're back in 10, 9. So I had like 10 seconds to kind of figure this, process the dead, and to be able to articulate something that was half-assed legible to the audience. And I have never gone back and watched that tape.
Most disturbing was WWE's decision to continue the event despite Owen's death. While his body was still in the ring area, the pay-per-view proceeded with scheduled matches, wrestlers performing with the knowledge that their colleague had just died. WWE has controlled Owen's legacy by carefully limiting discussions about the negligence that caused his death. They've edited the Over the Edge 1999 pay-per-view in their content library, removing evidence of their decision to continue the show after his fall. By settling the lawsuit for $18 million with a non-disclosure agreement, they've effectively restricted Martha Hart's ability to discuss certain aspects of the case, allowing WWE to control the public narrative. What's particularly revealing is the contrast between how WWE handled the accident and how similar incidents would be handled in other entertainment contexts. Broadway shows stopped performances for medical emergencies in the audience, let alone performer deaths. Cirque du Soleil canceled weeks of performances after a performer fell to her death in 2013. Yet WWE continued their show within minutes of Owen's fall, with performers expected to go out and entertain a crowd largely unaware that their colleague had just died. This decision speaks volumes about the company's priorities and remains one of the most controversial moments in wrestling history, one that WWE documentaries and retrospectives consistently gloss over when discussing the Hart family legacy. Benoit, the brain damage connection. Benoit was once considered one of the greatest technical wrestlers in the world. The Canadian grappler was renowned for his intensity, precision, and toughness throughout a career that spanned WCW, ECW, and WWE, culminating in a World Heavyweight Championship victory at WrestleMania 9 Cox in 2004. However, his legacy was forever tarnished when in June 2007, he murdered his wife Nancy and 7-year-old son Daniel before taking his own life. A horrific crime that shocked the wrestling world. Brain studies after Benoit's death revealed his brain resembled that of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient with severe damage from multiple concussions. What WWE has hidden is their potential culpability in promoting a style that contributed to this damage. The researchers specifically pointed to Benoit's signature diving headbutt move and chair shots to the head as likely contributors to his CTE, techniques that were standard and encouraged in WWE for years. After Benoit's murder-suicide in 2007, WWE rapidly shifted from a tribute show to complete erasure, an attempt to distance themselves from uncomfortable questions about their responsibility. While understandable, given the horrific nature of his final acts, this death, friends reported Benoit was profoundly affected by Guerrero's passing, keeping a journal addressed to Eddie and occasionally calling his disconnected phone number a year and a half after his death. By keeping these narratives separate, WWE avoids confronting whether more attentive mental health monitoring might have revealed warning signs in Benoit's behavior, preserving the company's image while sacrificing a complete understanding of this tragedy. The Neurosurgeon Julian Bales, who examined Benoit's brain, described finding tau protein deposits throughout the brain tissue, a hallmark of CTE. The damage was particularly severe in areas controlling impulse control and judgment, precisely the functions that might prevent someone from committing violent acts. While no one suggests CTE excuses Benoit's horrific actions, the complete erasure of his existence from WWE history has conveniently eliminated any nuanced discussion about the company's responsibility for the brain damage their performers sustained. WWE eventually banned unprotected chair shots to the head in 2010, but they've rarely connected this policy change to Benoit's case, or acknowledged that their previous entertainment practices may have literally damaged their performers' brains. Eddie Guerrero, the delayed wellness response. Eddie Guerrero embodied the ultimate wrestling success story, a performer who overcame personal demons to reach the pinnacle of his profession. Known for his Latino heat persona and catchphrase, "I lie, I cheat, I steal," Guerrero combined exceptional technical skill with charismatic character work, becoming WWE champion in 2004. His victory celebration with close friend Chris Benoit at WrestleMania Texas created one of wrestling's most emotional moments. Tragically, on November 13, 2005, Guerrero was found unresponsive in his hotel room before a scheduled WWE event. Eddie died at 38 from acute heart failure due to atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. What WWE has hidden is their reluctance to implement comprehensive health monitoring until after losing a top star. Before Guerrero's death, WWE had weathered numerous substance-related controversies, including the 1990 steroid trial and several high-profile performer incidents. Yet comprehensive testing and health monitoring weren't implemented until after this tragedy. The grueling schedule of performing multiple nights per week while injured created conditions where many wrestlers, including Guerrero, turned to pain medication to continue performing. His death highlighted the urgent need for addressing substance abuse and heart health in wrestling. Eddie's passing wasn't an isolated tragedy. It followed years of warning signs the wrestling world failed to heed. In the decade before his death, a disturbing number of wrestlers died before reaching 45, many from heart-related issues linked to substance use. Former WWE star Davey Boy Smith died of heart failure at just 39. Road Warrior Hawk suffered a fatal heart attack at 46. And Kurt Hennig lost his life to cocaine-induced heart failure at 44, all within a few short years before Eddie's own death. Despite this pattern of heart-related deaths among current and former performers, WWE implemented no systematic cardiac screening program until after Guerrero's high-profile death backstage at a WWE event. This reactive rather than proactive approach reveals a company culture that prioritized continued performance over preventative health measures, addressing issues only when they became impossible to ignore. Umaga, the release and abandonment. Umaga, born Edward Fatu, was one of the most physically imposing and talented big men of the 2000s WWE era. The Samoan wrestler portrayed a savage character with face paint and wild hair, using his Samoan spike finisher to defeat numerous top stars. Despite his fearsome on-screen persona, colleagues described him as gentle and beloved backstage. Umaga reached his career peak, representing Vince McMahon against Donald Trump's representative Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania 23's Battle of the Billionaires match, which led to the infamous scene of McMahon having his head shaved by Trump. Umaga's 2009 death from a drug overdose at just 36 years old was largely ignored by WWE. What the company has hidden is how their approach to wellness policy violations may have contributed to his fate. In June 2009, Umaga was released after refusing rehabilitation following a wellness violation. 6 months later, he died from precisely the issues the policy was ostensibly designed to address. WWE released a brief statement wishing his family well, but otherwise distanced themselves, despite his significant impact during his tenure. The company's approach reveals the limitations of a wellness system that terminates rather than intensifies support for performers displaying signs of serious substance issues. Being released meant losing not only income, but also access to whatever health resources WWE provided, potentially leaving Umaga in a more vulnerable position. The company has never publicly reflected on whether their handling of his case represented a missed opportunity for intervention that might have prevented his premature death, hiding behind policy enforcement rather than acknowledging the human cost of their approach to wellness. Like many Samoan wrestlers, Umaga performed a physically demanding style that put tremendous strain on his 350-pound frame. This combination of physical toll and the sudden removal of professional support systems following his release creates troubling questions about WWE's WWE's responsibility to performers even after termination. The company's minimal acknowledgement of his death and refusal to discuss their handling of his case highlights a system designed more for liability management than genuine care for performer health, a truth WWE has worked diligently to obscure from public view. Lance Cade, the political sacrifice. Lance Cade represented the prototype of what WWE typically looked for in a potential main event star during the mid-2000s. Tall, physically impressive, and technically sound. Standing 6'5" inches and trained by Shawn Michaels, Cade had the look and skills that traditionally appealed to WWE management. Between 2003 and 2008, he captured the World Tag Team Championship 3 times with partner Trevor Murdoch and was reportedly being groomed for eventual singles success before health issues derailed his trajectory. Lance Cade died from a drug overdose at just 29 years old with no official WWE mention, despite his rising star status. What WWE has hidden is how political considerations apparently influenced their response to his death. His passing coincided with Linda McMahon's 2010 Senate campaign in Connecticut, making acknowledgement of a former talent dying from drug-related causes potentially damaging to her political image. Vince McMahon's public dismissal of Cade as not a big star directly contradicted the company's previous investment in his development. Trained at Shawn Michaels Wrestling School and featured in tag team championship runs, Cade had been positioned for potential singles success before health issues derailed his career. His 2008 seizure on a plane, reportedly related to prescription medication use, led to his release, though WWE later rehired him, suggesting they still valued his abilities. The contrast between WWE's apparent belief in Cade's potential during his career and Vince McMahon's posthumous minimization of his significance reveals how external factors, in this case the McMahon family's political ambitions, influenced which performers were memorialized and how their deaths were framed. By hiding the true significance of Cade's contributions, WWE protected their political interests while dishonoring a performer they had once valued enough to rehire after serious health concerns. The political context became explicit when Linda McMahon's opponent, Richard Blumenthal's campaign, directly referenced Cade's death in criticizing her business practices. Asked about Cade during a press conference, Vince McMahon responded with surprising dismissiveness, "I don't know that he was under contract with us. I really don't know what Lance Cade died of." This deliberate distancing, despite Cade's recent employment with the company, having been released just the previous year, demonstrates how quickly WWE can rewrite history when politically expedient. The company that had featured Cade prominently on television for years suddenly couldn't recall basic details about his employment or death, revealing the calculated nature of how WWE chooses to acknowledge or ignore performer deaths based on factors entirely unrelated to their contributions to the company. Doink the Clown, the brain injury lawsuit. Matt Osborne created one of wrestling's most memorable characters as the original evil Doink the Clown. Debuting in WWE in 1992, Doink was a twisted take on circus clowns, a sinister character who played cruel pranks on other wrestlers and fans alike. Behind the painted face and green wig character was Osborne, a talented veteran with previous runs in world-class championship wrestling and WCW. Though others would later portray the character, Osborne's original interpretation remains the definitive version, combining impressive in-ring work with nuanced character performances. Matt Osborne died in 2013 from a drug overdose at age 55. What WWE has hidden is how aggressively they fought to avoid potential responsibility for his health decline. In 2015, his family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against WWE, alleging neurological damage suffered during his wrestling career contributed to his substance issues and ultimate death. The lawsuit specifically claimed Osborne suffered multiple concussions while working for WWE, resulting in chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, that manifested in depression, drug addiction, and eventually his fatal overdose. These allegations directly challenged WWE's historical approach to head impacts, which were common in wrestling during Osborne's era when unprotected chair shots and high-impact moves were standard. WWE's legal response was aggressive, with attorneys arguing the claims were speculative and filed after the statute of limitations. While the case was ultimately dismissed in 2018, WWE's limited acknowledgement of Osborne's death and complete silence on the subsequent lawsuit illustrates the company's approach to potentially damaging narratives, minimize attention, vigorously contest allegations, and avoid public discussion that might validate concerns about performer health outcomes. This pattern of legal defense, rather than institutional reflection, has hidden the human cost of WWE's historical performance expectations. Court documents revealed WWE's defense strategy centered on denying any direct link between wrestling performances and brain injuries, despite growing scientific evidence about repetitive head impacts in contact sports. WWE attorney Jerry McDevitt described the lawsuits as preposterous and lacking scientific basis, though similar claims against the NFL had resulted in a billion-dollar settlement. The company's aggressive litigation posture has effectively silenced many former performers who might otherwise speak about their experiences, creating a chilling effect that helps WWE maintain control over narratives about performer health. By treating these cases as legal threats to be neutralized rather than legitimate health concerns to be addressed, WWE has hidden behind courtroom tactics while avoiding substantive public discussion about their historical approach to performer safety and potential connections to premature deaths. Ashley Misaro, the silent sexual assault. Ashley Misaro joined WWE after winning the 2005 Diva Search, receiving a one-year contract worth $250,000. Despite limited wrestling experience, the former model quickly became a fixture on WWE programming, appearing at WrestleMania, competing on Survivor China, and gracing the cover of Playboy. Her time with the company ended in 2008, and she largely disappeared from public view until her shocking death by suicide in 2019 at age 39, leaving behind a teenage daughter. Ashley Misaro's assault allegations and subsequent suicide represent one of WWE's most disturbing cover-ups. What WWE has hidden is their alleged mishandling of her sexual assault during a 2006 military tour in Kuwait. According to reports, Misaro was raped by a military doctor during the tour and reported the incident to WWE management. Misaro claimed in a previously sealed affidavit that Vince McMahon told her to keep quiet about the incident to avoid negative press and upsetting relationships with the military. This silencing allegedly extended beyond the assault itself. Misaro stated she wasn't provided proper medical attention or support following the traumatic experience. WWE has vehemently denied these allegations, but their aggressive efforts to keep these claims from public view raise troubling questions. After Misaro died by suicide in 2019, her previous allegations resurfaced, along with claims that WWE pressured her into dropping a lawsuit that included these accusations. The company's approach to Misaro's case, aggressively countering her allegations rather than acknowledging the possibility of mishandling her reported assault, reveals a corporate culture more concerned with protecting its public image than addressing serious harm allegedly experienced by its performers while representing the company internationally. The timing of Misaro's allegations coincided with WWE's Tribute to the Troops initiative, which positioned the company as patriotic supporters of American military personnel. The program represented a significant public relations effort, particularly during a period of active military conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. If Misaro's allegations were publicly acknowledged, they would have undermined this carefully constructed image and jeopardized WWE's relationship with military partners. This context helps explain the alleged pressure to remain silent. The company's brand positioning took precedence over a performer's traumatic experience and need for support. WWE's consistent denial of these allegations without transparent investigation reflects a troubling pattern of protecting institutional interests at the expense of individual welfare, particularly when those individuals possess less power within the corporate hierarchy. The independent contractor facade comes for wrestlers. While not specific to any single performer's death, this system has contributed to the circumstances surrounding numerous premature deaths. Wrestling's physical demands and lack of health insurance for independent contractors have contributed to higher mortality rates. What WWE has hidden is the fundamental contradiction in their employment practices, treating performers like employees regarding exclusivity, schedule control, and creative direction, but as contractors regarding benefits and protections. This classification means performers typically bear responsibility for their own health insurance, retirement planning, and injury recovery costs despite WWE controlling when and how they work. For wrestlers dealing with injuries or health issues developed during their WWE tenure, the financial burden can be substantial, potentially leading to undertreated conditions or premature returns to action. John Oliver highlighted this issue in 2019, calling for fan protests at WrestleMania 35 and emphasizing the connection between this classification and wrestler mortality. WWE's continued defense of this arrangement, despite extensive control over performers, reveals a business model designed to maximize flexibility for the company while limiting financial responsibility for performer health outcomes, a model directly linked to premature deaths among former wrestlers who lacked adequate health care after their careers ended. The independent contractor classification has survived multiple legal challenges, despite WWE exercising levels of control that would typically define an employer-employee relationship. relationship. Performers can't work for competing companies, must adhere to strict scheduled employment insurance. This arrangement creates a particularly devastating scenario for wrestlers who develop chronic injuries or health conditions, as they often face the double burden of diminished earning capacity and substantial medical costs without institutional support. Former wrestlers have described being unable to afford necessary surgeries for injuries sustained during their WWE careers, leading to worsening conditions and increased reliance on pain medication, a pathway that has contributed to numerous premature deaths. By maintaining this classification despite knowing its human cost, WWE has prioritized financial efficiency over performer welfare in a way that directly connects to the high mortality rate among former talent, a connection the company works diligently to obscure from public discussion. The wellness program's convenient exemptions. Following Eddie Guerrero's death in 2005, WWE introduced its wellness program, ostensibly to monitor performer health and prevent substance abuse through drug testing, cardiovascular screening, and concussion management. While presented as a comprehensive approach to performer health, the program has been criticized for structural limitations that undermine its effectiveness, particularly regarding which performers are subject to its requirements. WWE's wellness program has loopholes like not testing part-time wrestlers. What WWE has hidden is how business considerations trump health concerns in their supposed health monitoring system. The exemption for part-time performers creates a noticeable double standard where major drawing stars like Brock Lesnar compete without the same testing requirements as full-time roster members. When part-time performers with exceptional physiques are exempted from testing while regularly appearing on programming, it undermines the program's credibility and reveals the company's priorities. Other troubling aspects include the program's focus on punitive measures rather than preventive care, with violations typically resulting in suspensions and potential termination rather than comprehensive health support. The three-strike policy, which provides for termination after a third violation, can separate performers from whatever support systems the company provides precisely when they demonstrate the greatest need for intervention. These structural limitations reveal a program designed primarily to address public relations concerns and limit liability, rather than comprehensively supporting performer health, hiding the reality that business interests consistently outweigh genuine health concerns in WWE's approach to talent welfare. WWE has touted the wellness policy as evidence of their commitment to performer health, but its implementation reveals a system built around exceptions and exemptions that protect the company's financial interests. Beyond the part-time performer exemption, the policy has evolved to include therapeutic use exemptions that allow performers to use certain substances with medical documentation. While potentially legitimate for addressing genuine health needs, this system has been criticized for potentially enabling continued substance use under medical cover. The program's emphasis on testing rather than underlying health determinants also fails to address the fundamental issues driving substance use: the physical toll of the performance schedule, the pressure to maintain certain aesthetic appearances, and the expectation to perform through injuries. Most tellingly, WWE rarely discusses performers who have been terminated under the wellness policy in their historical coverage, treating these departures as embarrassing footnotes rather than potential evidence of systemic issues. By presenting the policy as comprehensive while maintaining these convenient exemptions and limitations, WWE has created the appearance of responsibility while preserving business flexibility that often comes at the expense of consistent health standards. The Selective Memorialization System. Over the decades, dozens of current and former WWE performers have died prematurely. How the company acknowledges these deaths varies dramatically, creating patterns that reveal underlying priorities and calculated image management, rather than consistent respect for all who contributed to the company's success. WWE's handling of wrestler deaths reflects a careful calculation about which stories serve their corporate image. What they've hidden is the existence of an apparent internal value system that determines which deaths receive prominent tributes and which get minimal acknowledgement, often based on cause of death rather than contribution to the company. Those who died from heart attacks or accidents unrelated to substance use, like Ultimate Warrior or Dusty Rhodes, receive suicide or circumstances that might reflect poorly on the industry, often receive brief acknowledgments at most, regardless of their contributions during their careers. WWE's approach to memorialization reveals a pattern of minimal acknowledgement when deaths involve drug overdoses or controversial circumstances. This selective approach effectively creates a two-tier system of remembrance remembrance, where certain deaths are deemed acceptable for full commemoration, while others are minimized to avoid uncomfortable questions about the wrestling lifestyle and its physical toll. By controlling these narratives, WWE shapes not just how individual performers are remembered, the contrast in how deaths are memorialized becomes especially clear when comparing contemporaries with similar career achievements but different circumstances of death. When Randy Savage died from heart disease, he eventually received full Hall of Fame honors and documentary treatments. When Chyna died from an overdose, despite being a groundbreaking performer in the same era, her acknowledgement was minimal for years. He now has an award named after him celebrating those who have exhibited unwavering strength and perseverance. Yet performers who exhibited those same qualities but died from substance-related causes received no such honors, their struggles framed as personal failings rather than potentially connected to industry pressures. It avoids drawing attention to patterns of death that might suggest institutional responsibility, and it creates incentives for current performers to maintain positive relationships with the company regardless of treatment, knowing that their legacy depends on remaining in WWE's good graces, even after death. By controlling which stories are told and how, thanks for watching. Check out our other videos for more exciting content.